One of the important components of training Taijiquan as a martial art is developing the skills related to seizing, qin, and controlling na. Although the best method of training these skills is via two-person exercises, there are often times when a suitable training partner isn't readily available. At such times, an excellent alternative is to practice a set of solo exercises using a short wooden stick called a bong. Training with the stick can provide excellent physical conditioning in preparation for or in conjunction with two-person work. Training with the stick can also be used as a general health exercise to strengthen the arms and hands and increase the range of motion in their related joints. Many practitioners have found that practice of the stick exercises has been instrumental in alleviating ailments from the arms and hands, particularly those related to repetitive stress injuries. Training with the stick consists of a variety of individual exercises, each of which involves grasping the circumference of the stick while twisting the stick back and forth in the hands. The twisting action is sometimes likened to wringing a towel. Resistance of the twisting motion is provided by one's grip on the stick. Some exercises simulate applying a particular grabbing and twisting action to an opponent's arm. Other exercises simulate an opponent applying a particular grabbing and twisting action to your arm. In the latter exercises, the stick enables you to apply leverage to the joints of your own hands, wrists, and arms. The stick exercises can be practiced at multiple levels and for multiple purposes. First, and at the most basic level, training with the stick is an external exercise that will strengthen the practitioner's hands, wrists, and forearms. Second, training with the stick teaches the practitioner the kinematics, that is, the range of motion and interrelationship of the wrist, elbow, and shoulder joints, and how they can be manipulated to lock the arm or entire body, relevant to both applying and neutralizing qin-na. Third, the stick exercises can be used to stretch and strengthen the muscles and connective tissues of the wrists, hands, and forearms to increase the range of motion and strength of the joints, making it more difficult for an opponent to successfully lock one's joints. Fourth, the stick exercises are internal training exercises involving whole body movement that teach the practitioner to spiral power from the center of the body to the arms and hands. When practiced as whole body exercises, the physical mechanics are relatively complex, involving careful coordination of the parts of the body and the coordination of movement with breathing. This video is the third in a progressive series of videos called Taijiquan Foundations. The material in this video relies heavily upon the material presented in the first two volumes. Each section of the body is connected to its adjacent section by a joint. There are a number of different types of joints, each characterized by the range of motion it allows. When taken together, the sections of the body and the joints that connect them form a chain comprised of individual linkages. By correctly manipulating the links in the chain, that is, by moving the individual parts of the body through specific ranges of motion, one can position the parts of the chain so that the range of motion of one joint impedes the range of motion of another joint. When this happens, mobility of the chain, or a part thereof, is restricted or eliminated, and it is said to be locked. Identifying the types and ranges of motion of each of the major joints is helpful in understanding how to manipulate an opponent's body to lock all or a portion of his body. In addition to the up and down bending motion, the wrist joint also allows the hand to be bent side to side, motion referred to as abduction and adduction. Similarly, the range of motion and the amount of pain caused by forcing the wrist to bend sideways to its extreme range of motion varies with the individual. Again, there are many actions found within Tai Chi forms that involve imposing this action on an opponent's wrist. The elbow joint also allows two types of motion, bending and unbending, and rotation of the forearm. The connective tissues of the body are easily injured. Consequently, when first starting training with the stick, the exercises should be performed slowly and gently, ensuring that you do not overextend the joints of your hands, wrists, and arms. With continued practice, the connective tissues will stretch and strengthen, and you can progressively practice with greater vigor. In the previous videos of the Taijiquan Foundations series, the material was presented progressively, building from the simplest to the more complex. This approach is continued in this video. The first two exercises presented in this video contain many of the basics used throughout the practice of the stick. Consequently, the first two exercises are presented in considerable detail, with multiple levels, each of which being a stepping stone to the next. Next, stand with your feet shoulder width apart. Place your palms lightly against your abdomen. Exhale while you relax your abdomen, close your chest, and round the length of your spine. Doing so extends your arms away from and in front of your abdomen. Start by sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Hold the stick vertically in front of your chest along your center line. Your right hand grips the circumference of the stick at its lower end, while your left hand grips the circumference at the upper end. This exercise is performed to a count of 2. Next, let's add some internals. As your spine straightens, your chest opens and your arms are drawn inwards, inhale while contracting your abdominal muscles, which pulls your belly button inwards towards your lower back. The action of pulling your belly button towards your lower back is the activity done in level 1. Next, repeat the exercise without rotation of your waist, while standing with your feet about shoulder width apart, feet facing forward, your weight evenly distributed between your feet. As before, hold the stick vertically in front of your chest along your center line. As you draw your arms inwards towards your chest, straighten your spine, open your chest, inhale, and contract your abdomen as if pulling your belly button towards your back. This basic action is found in a variety of movements in Taiji forms, both empty hand and weapons forms. As you rotate your rear foot from facing forward to facing 45 degrees to facing 90 degrees, the rear leg progressively rotates further in the hip, opening the rear hip joint progressively further and allowing the crotch to be progressively rounded further. Turning the rear foot to about 90 degrees is a common stance in Chen-style Taijiquan and some variants of Yang style. Note, however, that if the foot is turned outwards more than 90 degrees, mechanical advantage suffers, or in traditional language, qi leaks out the rear foot. One need only try to push something with the rear foot pointed outward more than 90 degrees to experience the loss of pushing ability. In this exercise, one way of coordinating these actions is, as the stick and arms go forward, your back goes backward as it rounds, and your knees go outward to the sides. As you open your chest and retract the stick and arms, your knees contract slightly inwards, a multi-directional action opposite to the first. Note that except when purposely exaggerated for clarity, the lateral motion of the knees is relatively small, sufficiently small that if not explicitly pointed out, would probably go unnoticed by the casual observer. Again, when performing the horizontal ringing action, the waist turns to direct the extension of the stick to the front. The hips do not rotate substantially. In exercise 1, horizontal ringing, we looked at a largely horizontal contraction and expansion of the abdomen that in conjunction with breathing drives the ringing of the stick. In this exercise, we focus on a vertical component to the contraction of the abdomen. It is this vertical component that largely drives the vertical ringing of the stick in this exercise. Let us start by looking at a simple exercise for isolating the vertical action of the abdomen. This exercise is performed to a count of 2. As you slowly and evenly inhale through your nose, contract your abdomen and lift your perineum, slightly contracting your anus. Do not allow the pressure to rise above your solar plexus, not into your chest or head, and do not lift your shoulders or have the breathing expand your chest. Let's start with the choreography of the exercise, which is performed to a count of 2. Start by standing with your feet about shoulder width apart and the stick supported in your hands near the ends of the stick, palms facing upwards in front of your chest. Next, let's add the internals that drive the motion. The 2 previous exercises involve symmetric expansion and contraction of the torso about the abdomen. The symmetric nature of these 2 exercises involves each side of the body expanding and contracting uniformly about the center. In the first exercise, the abdomen alternates between a largely horizontal forward motion and a backward motion. In the second exercise, the abdomen alternates between a largely vertical upward motion and a downward motion. In contrast to the first 2 exercises, in this exercise we introduce expansion and contraction of the torso about the abdomen that occurs asymmetrically. Relax your left leg and hip, allowing gravity to realign your torso. As you straighten your left leg into your left hip, contracting the left side of your torso, the right side of your torso stretches as your right hip and right shoulder move away from each other. Your left side contracts as your right side stretches, creating a shearing action diagonally across the torso. I can superimpose on this diagonal action the actions of the spine and the chest. If this is done in a specific sequence, the movement of my belly button follows a circular path. With practice, the actions can be performed smaller and in a more continuous fashion. With the right hand in front of the abdomen, we can use the opening portion of this action to lift the hand, and the closing portion of the action, assisted by gravity, to press downwards. These actions are used to lift the stick upwards on one side of the torso and downwards on the opposite side of the torso. This exercise represents a common joint lock found in Chen-style Taijiquan. Amongst the things this exercise trains is how to neutralize this lock being applied to you and how to simultaneously strike your opponent with your shoulder. There are 3 separate manipulations of the arm and hand that are involved in this exercise and the joint lock it represents. Holding the end of the stick in your right hand, first turn your palm to face outward. Another variation is to perform the action to the sides in front of or behind the knee.